Okay, we're recording as of now. Hello, everybody. It's Mike and Ryan from Your Social Strategy. Today, we're going to be covering in our webinar the ways to boost your engagement on Facebook. This is a very critical piece to your overall Facebook strategy. It's a key deliverable. When you are seeing how well you're doing on Facebook, one of the things that you should be checking is your engagement rate. So Ryan is actually going to be the presenter today. I'm just the special guest. Yeah, so anyways, we're gonna get started. We are recording this session. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock, you will get an email from our group with the link to the recording. So if you have a chance, or if you missed something and you wanna go back through it, no problem. If I could just get a 1 in the chat, you guys can see my screen, see us, hear us, everything's good. If I could just get a 1 in the chat, that would be awesome. Even Ryan, if you want to put a 1 in the chat, if you see it, perfect. All right. So just to introduce myself first, my name is Mike Hepburn. I'm the owner and operator of Your Social Strategy. I've been in business since 1998, doing various other businesses, but this business, YourSocialStrategy.com, has been around since 2016. I have 29 years of experience in the funeral profession, starting out working in my family funeral home and then owning a couple of other companies like Frontrunner Professional and Funeral Tech. I am a past board member of the Thousand Islands Chamber of Commerce and a current member of the Kingston, Ontario Chamber. I always tell people you're more than welcome to contact me in any one of my methods, either by email, phone, or by text. If you're trying to get a hold of me, the quickest way is by text. So you can text me at 613-328-9422. I encourage everybody to do so. I also have a gentleman on the line. His name is Ryan Maybe. Ryan is our social media manager. He leads up the social media team. Ryan has been with me for a little over a year, I believe since January of 2021. So he's been with me now actually for 18 months, which is awesome. Ryan has definitely grown with our company. This is, I believe, his first opportunity to work within his industry right out of school. So there's been a lot of learning to take in, but he's done extremely well with Facebook advertising and, as I mentioned, heading up the social team. So he's in charge of them and making sure everybody gets their calendars and everything is posted on time. So we're very excited always to have Ryan with us, but I'm also very excited to have him on this presentation. This is his expertise. So with that, what we'll do is we're going to pass it over to Ryan. What we're going to try and do is we're going to change the presenter so that Ryan can share his screen. So let's just do that.
Okay, so a quick switch. All right. This is where we left off here. Thanks for that introduction, Mike. So I'm just going to go over kind of like a quick highlight of the topics we're going to talk about today, and then we'll dive in a little bit to each point and get like specific with things. Near the end of the presentation, I'm actually going to go in and we're going to do a live example of what it's like to create a boosted post. And we're going to use something that's on our current Facebook page that's live right now, so you can kind of see that whole process in real time, which should be pretty exciting. Okay, so I'll start things off. We want to look at exactly how you and your business can reach your audience using social media platforms. So Facebook, obviously being the biggest one with the most large and diverse audience, it makes this platform an easy one to choose for promoting your business. So first we want to look at what kind of platforms might be best for your business. We're going to talk about Facebook for the most part, but I will touch a little bit into some of the other platforms that are out there in case you want to diversify your audience. But Facebook is going to be the example we're going to dive in pretty heavily today. Just again, with how diverse that audience is, it's really easy to reach exactly who you want. So we want to talk about the kind of content you're going to promote on your Facebook page and throughout the rest of social media. So we're looking at the idea of quality over quantity. In the past, quantity was always the way that these algorithms would try to encourage you to post to your page, because the more often you were posting, the better engagement you were going to get. That's not necessarily the case anymore. What is stronger is to represent your brand on a more consistent basis and being able to diversify the content. So rather than posting still images 5 to 7 days a week, you want to mix things up by, maybe it's 3 posts a week and you're going to post on 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sticking to that schedule. But then maybe Tuesday, Thursday, rather than posting to your timeline, you want to share a video, or maybe it's a story or a reel. Depending on what kind of platform you're sharing these videos on, the terminology might change up a little bit. For instance, YouTube calls their reels shorts. So stories, reels, they're kind of just short form video content. And that's what a lot of these platforms are eating up right now. And that's what you want to get in the habit of showing your business through the form of short form video. So when we're talking about quality content, we usually try to encourage a lot of people to kind of get personal with their brand. And this is specifically the best case scenario if your business is trying to reach a more local audience, and you might be a small business that's looking to grow within your community, or maybe just branching out to the communities outside your typical radius where you live. For national brands or international even, it's still important to be a little personal, but you want to lean more heavily into the education side of things and so on. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we progress through this presentation. So when we're posting this content, we want to first consider who our audience is. And we need to know this because we want to make sure we're curating content that they're best going to respond to, that they're able to relate to, and they're most likely to engage with. So for the first while, if you're starting a brand new Facebook page, this is your first time into social media, you're going to be probably experimenting a little bit. We typically tell a lot of our clients that we work alongside with and collaborate with that the first 2 to 3 month window is a big learning process, because we're understanding your audience, or their audience in this case, and what kind of content they're most likely to engage with. So maybe it is that personal side of things. Maybe it's a quick raw video that they're just recording with their cell phones in their hands, saying, for example, I'm a real estate agent and I'm at this new listing online, check it out, here's a link. They're going to try to answer the who, the what, the where, when, all those kinds of questions, and try to get it out to as many people as possible. Again, using the most diverse format, so mixing things up between video and still timeline images. After the first few months that you're consistently posting on whatever kind of schedule works best for you and your brand, that's when we're going to start being able to look into the analytics, which again, I'll showcase some data in real time later in the presentation. And we can kind of learn about our audience. So who they are based on age ranges, maybe where this audience is coming from, like where do they live, when are they most active. These are all the kind of like basic important questions we want to learn from those first few months of posting content, because that'll better allow us to curate the best kind of schedule for future postings. So I mentioned posting like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule at 9 a.m. That's kind of like a generic way to start, but you can mix things up after if you're not getting the right engagement that you want. Maybe your audience is most active just after dinner. So 6 or 7 p.m., that's when people might be visiting their phones, checking in on friends and family, and you want to make sure your content is posted within that timeline where they're most active. So that's what the first kind of few months are really going to teach you based on your analytics. We can learn where your fans and audiences are coming from, and what they're most responsive to based on the kind of content you're posting. So again, I did touch a little bit on the data, which we'll get into a little bit later, just to kind of give you a realistic, in-depth live view of what some of this data looks like and where you can go to find it on your Facebook business page. And again, this is the kind of data we want to learn in order to really tailor your content, the quality content, again, going back to that, in order to better structure the kind of stuff you want to see on your page, and that's going to best represent your business. So again, this is just touching on like the times. So when we talk about peak hours, you can Google, when are people most active online, specifically with Facebook. So that's kind of where that 8 to 10 p.m. window comes into play. But depending on your business, most people might not be active during the morning, but maybe in the afternoon, maybe it's on their lunch break. So that's kind of the things you'll learn through your analytics during those first couple months. And you'll better understand your audience from those analytics. So when I did touch on some of the other platforms that are out there, of course, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn are some of the other platforms we can look to diversify our content. But Facebook is probably where we're best going to learn how to build promoted pieces of content, as well as getting into boosting a Facebook post, which is the example we're going to get into later. But we also want to consider using things like GIFs or other kinds of like movable, exciting imagery. So it's not just like a still flat image that somebody might scroll by without, being able to grab their attention. So GIFs are a great example of something that you can quickly reshare from somewhere else, and you could tie it into your brand. It's more of like a fun way to interact with your audience, a little bit more light-sided things from maybe the more professional educational things that you might be regularly posting to your Facebook or any of the other social media business pages. Hashtags are another thing to consider. They're not as relevant with Facebook anymore as they used to be, but still understanding what kinds of terms people are searching for will help you better curate that post, because keywords still do play a factor into the captions that you might include along with that photo, video, reel, GIF, whatever kind of content it is you're establishing with that post. So being able to use the right kind of terminology and figuring out what people are best responding to. Sometimes it's short and sweet with a couple of emojis included. Sometimes you want to get more in depth and give people a story. Maybe it's something more historical. It could tie into the location of your business. Is this a building that people might be interested in the history on? You can kind of give some insight into that with some fun hashtags or some specific keywords, and being able to kind of dive deep into your business's history, where you guys have come from, and so on. So those are just some of the examples of what you can tie into beyond just the creative and the visual of the post, but having fun with the captions and the wording, because that's a lot of things that will go into your branding as well. So in addition to just creating those still images, this is where we want to consider videos. So mixing things up and diversifying that content. Still images are still great so that you appear on people's timelines if they are scrolling through. And you want to make sure you're appealing to those times when people are best active, so that your posts are showing up as soon as they sign into these social platforms on their cell phone or their computer or wherever they might be viewing content and want to stay up to date with friends and family and other local businesses that they're interested in following. Videos in particular, short form videos are always best to include in your stories. We've found that a lot of people are actually gravitating towards more stories and video content because they're more bite-sized, easier to digest, and you're able to get a lot of information out within like a 1-minute video. So just something to consider as you're trying to grow your engagement, that the diversifying something is best. A good example for this is when we were promoting this webinar you're watching right now, we had a still image that we then boosted. And in addition to that, we shared it to our stories. So that way our audience, if they missed that image on the timeline while they were scrolling, they might have picked up on it through the boost that we threw behind it, or possibly because we shared it in our stories and they were flipping through all their stories of friends and family and businesses that they follow. So, and stories are something that you can post simultaneously through Facebook and in Instagram, as those platforms do live together. So just something to consider when you're developing the kind of content for your brand and your business. So live videos are another thing that have become a little bit more popular lately. This is probably the easiest way to interact with your audience in the most real time. Maybe you're doing a quick Q&A. For instance, you could be a insurance agent and people might have questions that they might not have seen by visiting your page, but they're more likely to engage with you because you're there answering their questions in real time, and they're able to get that out. They're able to interact with you one-on-one, but also as a group, and you can answer those questions in real time back. Live videos are also great for maybe you offer physical products and you want to showcase that in use. Maybe it's like an unboxing thing and you're showing people what they're going to get if they're buying your product, how that product might be used. And it establishes a little bit more trust because now people can see what they're going to be getting into before they actually make that purchase decision. So it helps kind of solidify that connection with your audience and building up the trust and pride behind what they're getting behind and why they might be following you. So there's a lot of different uses for live videos, but you are seeing them become a lot more popular in more recent years. So something else to consider when you're diversifying all that kind of content you're sharing. Okay. So again, when we're experimenting with new content, maybe those live videos is something that you're brand new to, and that's something you want to try out for the first time. It could be as something as simple and laid back that, hey, I'm doing a live video, just come say hi. That's a way for people to get to know you, kind of a face behind the brand. If your business doesn't necessarily have one specific person, maybe it's a live event that you do with your team, and everybody can kind of get to know who's who and what everybody does behind the business, without actually being able to log onto the page and scroll through months and months of back-ended content, and they're able to kind of interact and personalize themselves as you're giving them a personalized in-depth look on who you are, what you represent, and again, able to answer all and everybody's questions in real time. Maybe you're trying to experiment with more advertising on Facebook or some of these other platforms. So that's why I want to kind of show you how to boost post later on, because that's something that's easy, like super easy to do. And the biggest thing is being able to actually define that audience, establish how long your campaign might run. So we'll get into all that here pretty soon as we're nearing the end. So replying to comments. So this goes beyond just interacting with people on your live video, but interacting with people that are liking and commenting and sharing on a post that you've shared. So for instance, we've like I mentioned before, we shared a post talking about this webinar that you're in. If somebody had commented on that, we want to make sure we respond back to that person in a timely manner. Maybe it's like an urgent question that they're asking. Is this event free? How do I sign up? We try to answer all those kinds of questions before somebody might comment, so that we're able to be as transparent as possible in what we're talking about, and what the event or whatever the post is all about. but it's also important to just stay engaged with your audience. Maybe somebody just comments like, oh, this is really great to see. You know, responding back to something like, we couldn't agree more, you know, thanks for commenting and, you know, showing your support. Something as simple as that goes a long way. And that's an easy way for you to organically push your brand beyond just where your posts live on the page. You know, Facebook likes to do this thing with their algorithm, as do all social medias, where your content is only shown to about 30 to 40%. That engagement will help push that, you know, if you're only living at 30%, it might help it push to 40. And then that's where you can get into a boosted post where it's going to boost that content even further. So always making sure you're responding to people as quickly as possible when that notification might pop up on your phone or in your email, however you might curate your notifications. And just staying engaged with your audience on a regular basis will ensure that your content continues to show up for those people and their friends, because, you know, their friends might see that, you know, John Smith commented on a post by Your Social Strategy, you know, and now John Smith is, you know, his friends might come to our page and visit it. And that's just an example of how you can organically grow just by people talking on each individual post or story that you're sharing. And it's a quick way to kind of gain a little bit of hype with whatever it is your business is trying to share to your audience. Okay, so number 8 here, highlighting your posts. So there's kind of two main things I want to point out here. Say you have an event that's coming up in, you know, right now we're June 29th. Let's say you have an event 1 month from now. So, you know, July 28th, 29th, you have an event coming up. You've made a post about it, you've boosted it. You know, your boost is finished, it did well, but you want to make sure that if somebody's visiting your page, that they're going to be notified by that event without having to scroll through all your content. So you could do something as simple as making sure that post about your event or a new product or whatever it is you really want to highlight, you pin that to the top of your business page. I'll show you an example of that later too before we get into the boosted post. But that pinned post will be the first thing that people see when they visit your page. And then they can start scrolling through the rest of your content, visit your About Me section, you know, maybe if they need some contact info, anything like that, just another way for a little bit of organic growth. But of course, the boosted posts are going to be the easiest and quickest and surest way of interacting with the appropriate audience that you're wanting to reach and inform about any kind of update that you're trying to push out there into your community. So before we close out here, I'm just going to switch my screen here quick. So I've already got our page shown up, and right now this is probably, if you visit any business that you're not currently following, this is how it's going to appear. What you actually want to make sure you're doing is, if you're an admin on this page, which if this is your business and you've created that page, you already will be automatically. So you want to make sure your business page looks like this, and you get all this fun stuff on the left-hand side. I'm going to scroll back here. I want to just quick show you guys. Here was a post we did talking about our webinar a couple days ago, just as a quick reminder. And we want to pin this to the top of our page. So now when somebody visits our page, we'll do a quick refresh here to show you that it's up there. So now if anybody's visiting it, this is the first thing they'll see because it says pin post, even though this was posted 2 days ago, rather than the thing that we posted this morning. And then this is the, you know, the event or a product or service or whatever it is you might have. This is the thing you want to live on your page until you're ready to promote something else. So I'll quick just unpin this because I want to actually pick a different example. We're just going to do a test boost. So there's a couple ways you can do it. In the this is what we call like the admin view of your business page, where you can see all the tools and everything. You can actually go to boost a post from here, and it will give you a few suggestions, or based on what you've posted recently, that Facebook is kind of determining that maybe you want to promote this one. If you know a specific post, you can always scroll to that specific post on your page and there will always be a little boost button. It will look a little bit different if it's currently boosted, because you'll get this little analytic window letting people know how that post is doing. And if you want to edit it, you can go into that as well. So let's just pick our most recent one here. We're going to use this as the example, and just kind of get right up to the end before we actually submit the boost. So you want to make sure that you've already set up an ad account, and that ad account is attached to your business page. You want to make sure that the goal best represents what you're trying to promote. So let's get some more engagement on this post. You'll see as I switch that the numbers here actually change based on what kind of goal we're creating. I'll switch it one more time just so you can get an idea. Let's get more website visitors. We'll see how this number on the right-hand side changes. So again, that one went up. So maybe this one's something that we want to highlight a little bit more based on whatever it is we're trying to promote. You can always look at how your post is going to appear on people's feeds. Of course, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to, or it could be just completely buggy. Generally, there should be a preview here. Could just be something I got to refresh. You can always pick the kind of button. This is what somebody might click on. So I find learn more or a sign up now, depending on what it is you're redirecting to, works best for like a website or a product page. Products also, if you have like an e-commerce page that's tied to maybe Shopify or Facebook, Instagram actually have their own built-in e-commerce platforms that you can kind of share with as well. For all intents and purposes here, we're just going to keep this as learn more. If you run any kind of political or employment or real estate ad, anything like that, finance kind of stuff, you'll always want to make sure you're selecting this right kind of thing. If you are in any kind of business that falls in line with any of these categories, if you don't select that and you still try to run an ad, maybe it's a real estate listing, your ad will not be approved. Generally, the ad won't even be submitted for their review because it immediately recognizes that, oh, this is a home listing. You need to make sure you select a special ad category in order for it to get through that review process. So that's something else to consider. So here is where things get really fun and interesting and where all these numbers will start to change again. So the smart audience is what Facebook is always going to automatically select for you based on maybe the information that it's determining from people who are currently following your page. So I'm just going to quick create a new one and just show you how quickly it actually does take. I usually go maybe about 24, let's go 24 to 20, or no, 54. Yeah. And I'm just gonna give this a quick name. You can name it whatever you want in order to be able to remember which one each audience is. You can target up to multiple locations. So as we're located in Kingston, I always try to get a couple other cities nearby. You want to make sure you change the radius. Usually try to make sure they don't overlap if possible. And let's throw Brockville in there too, so we just kind of get the full Thousand Islands kind of region along the water here. And this area is always tricky because of course we have the US on the other side. So this section here is where things get the most interesting because it's easy to select geography and age range and that kind of stuff. But we want to determine, what are people most interested in? So let's go marketing and let's say social media. So you'll see that some of these have demographics, interests. So interests are based on what people are following. So maybe you're trying to target other kind, like again, I always use real estate as a great example because there's tons and tons of different ads. So you're always going to have a lot of competition. So when you're targeting real estate as an interest, that might help your ad be shown to somebody that's not currently following your Facebook business page, but it could be following a competitor's. So that's why you want to select something like that. So just for fun, I'm going to leave it at that. Normally, I would probably have about 15 to 20, whatever you think is relevant. Generally speaking, the broader that your geographic and demographic of your audience is, the more detailed you want to get those interests and all this kind of special detailed targeting, because you want to narrow that audience down. Otherwise, your audience is going to be in the like multi-millions, especially if you start targeting larger populations like metropolitan cities like Toronto or Montreal, Ottawa, and being able to specifically target down that audience and narrow it a little bit will help make sure that your ad spend that you're putting behind your ad is reaching people as best as possible and not being shown to somebody outside of this target audience that we're going to be creating. So I'm pretty happy with what that is now. You can always go back and edit this and change things if you like. It's going to suggest that the estimated audience size here is based on all the credentials that we've popped into each of these 3 sections. So age range, gender, geographic location, and detailed targeting interests. So I'm going to save that audience. Now this number has changed just a little bit, not too much. And depending if you would still like to tweak it, you can always go back in and edit that again. So no big deal there. So if you're happy with that, then the last step, of course, is choosing how long you want to run this for. These numbers will change again based on how long you run. Depending on what your budget is, typically speaking, I would say a maximum of $120 to $150 for a 2-week campaign is a kind of generalized number that we usually play with. For intensive purposes, I'm going to put in 5 days for this one. And I want my total campaign. If you have a budget, you're going to want to look at this total amount. Push that up. Let's just say 50. So if you're happy with that, you can go in to make sure it's running on as many platforms as possible. You know, if it doesn't change the number all that much, you don't need to do that. If Instagram is relevant and you have that set up, you can run it there as well. You'll see that we have a pixel running, which is something we've attached to the back end of our website. So that people are clicking on our website, it lets us know that this audience came from this post on this platform, and we can determine like how many people are visiting the website and where they're coming from. So then you make sure your payment method is all set up. And you know, after you go through and review everything looks good. It's charging to your right ad account. Then you can hit boost now, which I'm not going to do right now because I don't want to spend Mike's money. And then your ad will be submitted. Normally the approval process for an ad doesn't take any more than, I would say, 12 to 24 hours, sometimes even less. I've had something where I've submitted it and within an hour it's approved and running. So it all depends on how detailed you make that boosted advertisement and how long it'll take Facebook to determine that it's following all their guidelines and you didn't break any of their rules or anything like that. In some special circumstances, you could have followed every rule and somehow they still disapprove your ad. You can always file an appeal with Facebook, and usually they'll resubmit that ad within a 24-hour time frame. Okay, so that pretty much includes things for now. I'll switch things back over to Mike if he just wants to close out the presentation. And of course, as we finish off here, if anybody has any questions that we're able to answer in real time here, feel free to throw that in the chat and we can answer your questions for you. Okay, so Mike, you are now the presenter again.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. That was very informative and a lot of pieces discussed. Hopefully you have an idea now of how to generate more engagement for your Facebook page, particularly with a boost or a Facebook boost. Ryan went through a great detail on how to set up a Facebook boost and how to generate your audience. One thing that he talked about a little bit, but we really didn't go into elaborate, is the Facebook Meta, they call it now the Meta Pixel. It used to be Facebook Pixel. basically that's a line of code that gets submitted to your website. So your website provider can put that into your website, and it tracks all activity that happens from Facebook. So if they come to your website from the Facebook pixel, then it gets recorded, and there's some data that can be extracted. It also is great for down the road if you're going to be retargeting or remarketing to those same people. It's a good tool to actually create an audience. So pretty good stuff there, Ryan. I appreciate your time. Great effort you put in.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. I'll give you a minute or two to pop a question in the chat. If there are no questions, then I will go into the final slide. So I'll just give it a moment or two. Okay, actually nobody had any questions. So I think Ryan, you answered everything perfectly. That's amazing. Again, if anybody has a question, feel free to reach out to Ryan or I, Mike at Your Social Strategy or Ryan at yoursocialstrategy.com are our email addresses. As I put out in the information earlier, you can feel free to text me at any time. That would be a great way to communicate. Since you stuck around, we do always have a webinar special. So what we would like to offer is for the first 3 months, a Facebook marketing plan where we will take care of your posts and curate your content for you. Normally that is a $4.95 per month fee, and we will do it for $4.45 a month, saving $50 per month for the first 3 months. So something to consider if you're not a current customer of ours, to utilize and join our little family. All right, so we're going to be doing our next webinar at the end of July. So feel free to watch for our announcements. I'm not sure what the next webinar is going to be on yet. Stephanie hasn't told me what the webinar topic will be, but we will certainly have that included. And you'll see Facebook posts and Facebook announcements and stories and reels and everything all about it. Again, look forward to having you guys join us. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.